लोकतंत्र की चुनौतियां. So the first question is, these are the cartoons. If I can show you in the book. So this is your textbook, and here we have various cartoons. So each of these cartoons represent a challenge to democracy. Please describe what that challenge is. Also place it in one of these three categories mentioned in the first section. So this is what we are going to answer, that each cartoon says what. This is the first cartoon where Hosni Mubarak, he was re-elected. So this represents the influence of rich and powerful people on the election. So in the democracy this may happen. The challenge is the deepening of democracy. Then here we have seeing the democracy. This is the cartoon, and this represents the existence of non-democratic regimes in the world. They say that they are democratic, but they are not, or even they are non-democratic also. So it tries to show that democracy does not come by the use of bullet. You don't need to use a bullet. So this is the foundational challenge. The challenge is foundational challenge. So this is the main thing. Then here we have the cartoon which shows liberal gender the equality and inequality. So this represents that in principle we talk about gender inequality or equality. That is, everyone talks about that the women should be given equality because they are 50% of the population. But in practice or in practicality, we see male are dominant in democracy. See, only one woman is there. So this is the challenge of expansion. Then we have this cartoon campaign money. So this represents how is money used to influence decision making in democracy by the rich and the powerful people. The challenge is the deepening of democracy. So we have now the other question which is based on this one. So different countries are given, and also the case and context and your description of the challenge for democracy in that situation. Now the question is this one. Now that you have noted down all these challenges, let us group these together into some broad categories. Given below are some spheres of or sites of democratic politics. You may place against each of these the specific challenge that you noted for one or more countries or cartoons in the previous discussions which we just had. In addition to that, write one item for India for each of these spheres. In case you find some challenges that do not fit into any of the categories which are given below, you can create new categories and put some items under that. So first one is the constitutional design. This we are talking about. Okay, we are answering like this. So constitutional design. So these are the maps or the location of the countries which we just showed. So Chile. In Chile, the main thing was setting up of a constituent assembly. In Ghana, when it comes to constitutional design, it was need to frame a new constitution. In Burma, Myanmar, establishing democratic regime and making new constitution. In Iraq, putting ethnic groups on equal footings by making relevant constitutional provisions. And Saudi Arabia, equality for all the citizens. In South Africa, provisions to protect the right to equality before law. And Sri Lanka, no language should be given constitutional protection. Like in the Sri Lanka, the Sinhala was made the language of the state. And of course, India, we have provision for uniform family laws. When it comes to the democratic rights, Chile, it was recalling all political leaders from exile. In Myanmar, that is Burma, it was release of Aung San Suu Kyi and bringing the democratic regime. Then in China, this one, introduction of democratic values. In Bolivia, solving the basic problem of water supply. And in India, 33% reservation for women in the legislative bodies, that is around 1/3 representation for the females. Coming to the working of institution, in Chile, establishing of civilian control over all government institutions. In Ghana, it was setting up of an effective administration and judiciary, formulation of new policies and programs. In Saudi Arabia, it was creating awareness among the citizens about democratic values and equality. Of course, India, we have the control of the custodial death. Coming to the elections, in Chile, holding the first multi-party election. In Poland, we have holding general election involving all the major parties and ensuring free and fair elections. In Myanmar, that is Burma, holding first multi-party elections. In Mexico, holding free and fair elections. In Pakistan, holding free and fair elections. In Iraq, holding multi-party. We have Iraq, that says holding multi-party free and fair election. In Yugoslavia, holding free and fair elections. And of course, India, if rigging is there in election, we need to put some hard measures to tackle it. Coming to the federalism and decentralization in Ghana, setting up of an effective administration and judiciary all over the country. In China, decentralization of power among the provinces. So when we talked about this elections and federalization, now coming to the accommodation of diversity, because what happens here, see, working of institutions and elections we have already seen, and there are more things coming to the accommodation of diversity. And let us talk about first the Indian federalism, decentralization. India, more power and resources to the local government, that is the federal structures need to be strengthened. And when it comes to accommodation of diversity in Iraq we talk about the negotiation between ethnic groups, because there are multiple ethnic groups like the Shia, Sunnis and the Kurds. South Africa, negotiation between the representative of both majority and minority groups, that is the blacks and whites. Saudi Arabia, here when we talk about Saudi Arabia, creating awareness of equality of citizens. In Yugoslavia, negotiation between again different ethnic groups. And Belgium, negotiating the issue between linguistic groups like the Dutch, French and Germans, accommodation of their demands, ethnic demands or different demands. In Ireland, developing trust building measures. And in Nepal, stopping the unrest in certain areas. This is the accommodation of diversity, mainly the people who are Maoist. And also in India, we have resolving dispute on the issue of reservation of OBCs, other backward classes. Now, political organization, this is Myanmar. So, bringing democratic regime by forming political parties here. In China, introduction of democratic values and democratization of government bodies. In Saudi Arabia, creating awareness among the people about the democratic values. Nepal, setting up of constituent assembly in Nepal. And then international organization, putting pressure on the US within and outside the United Nations. And India, of course, the formation of an exclusive body to look into the matter of corruption by the political parties' leaders. So if you have any other categories like negotiating the disputes, so Iraq, of course, between different ethnic groups. South Africa, between different political parties. Yugoslavia, ethnic groups. Belgium, linguistic groups. Sri Lanka, between the LTTE, Liberation Tiger of Tamil Eelam and the government. And Bolivia, negotiation with the MNCs so that the water can be at affordable price. And of course, India negotiating transport disputes between Delhi and UP and Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, the water problem. And peacekeeping measures, we have Poland taking back the martial law, Yugoslavia taking peacekeeping measures, Sri Lanka stopping the violence between different ethnic groups and linguistic groups, and Ireland is developing trust building measures. In Nepal, stopping the unrest, especially the Maoist. In Tarai area, the surrender of the Maoist who fight with arms against the government. In India also we have stopping unrest in the northeastern state in Jammu Kashmir. Now coming to the third question, let us group these again, this time by the nature of these challenges as per the classification suggested in the first discussion. For each of these categories, find at least one example from India as well. So first is the foundational challenge. So the causes and context of what we have seen in Chile, Poland, Myanmar, China, Saudi Arabia, Nepal. If you take the example of India, the northern eastern state and Jammu Kashmir problem, what is the challenge of expansion? We talk about the causes and context of Ghana, Mexico, Iraq, Yugoslavia, Sri Lanka and Ireland, and India giving more power and resources to the local government, and challenges of deepening. We talked about the international organization, United States, the Guantanamo Bay, Belgium, Pakistan and South Africa. In India, giving more powers to the ECI, Election Commission of India. Now let us think only about India. Think of all the challenges that democracy faces in contemporary India. List those 5 that should be addressed first of all. The listing should be in order of priority. That is the number 1 and so on. Give an example of that challenge and your reasons for assigning it the priority. So we are only talking about India. So we have question here and we are taking the questions of this textbooks only, right? So we are taking this answer. So women participation in the legislature, this is the challenges, this is the chunauti. For example, women constitute half, 50% of the population but do not have proportionate representation in the legislature, that is the Vidhayika. So the reasons for preference is women should be given share in power so that atrocities on them could be checked effectively, because women should be there in the legislatures. Corruption among the government officials. Now people take bribes. Bribe has become an acceptable norm for completion of any government work. So the reasons for preference is this weakens the functioning of the democracy and the people lose faith in it. They think that only money, they start giving money and this is just the normal norm. And corruption is because these people get this salary also. So why to give them money? They are working for us. Delayed justice. Sometimes justice is met after the death of the victims. The court case goes for long, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. So this weakens the faith of people in the democracy and challenges its very foundation, that is equality for everyone. Now increasing poverty, poor are becoming more poor. So you can say that the rich are becoming more richer. And the preference reason is most of the people of our country are fighting to meet these basic needs. Coming to low literacy rate of women literacy rate in our country is right now is around 50%, but around 64% we see the time I am talking about, where the male are 76%. So they constitute half of our population. So a large part of our population human resource is left either unused or underused. So we need to increase the literacy of women by any way the government can. Now we have certain challenges that require political reforms. So here is the question. So this is the question. Now, according to this question, discuss these challenges in detail, study the reform options offered here and give your preferred solution with the reasons. Remember that none of the options offered here is right or wrong. You can opt for a mix of more than one option or come up with something that is not offered here. But you must give your solution in details and offer reasons for your choice. So first one is the doctor's absenteeism. I would just like you to go through this. This is the doctor absenteeism and also the political funding. So we have discussed this when we are discussing the chapter. So you can say that I will go with the certain reforms, proposals regarding the doctor's absenteeism. The government should make it compulsory for the doctor to live in the villages where they are posted, but they must be provided the facilities like clean and well ventilated house with electric supply and the provision of clean water, because they are doctors. There must be appropriate schooling system for their children, then only they will stay in the villages. And means of communication should be there in the villages so that they can talk, they can communicate. An examination machine for the diagnosis of the diseases should be provided in each health center in the villages. That is, infrastructure should be built. And adequate machines must be supplied to health centers so that the doctors can make available to the doctors should be available to the patients. So good medicine and excellent infrastructure and the equipment, instruments, medical surgicals, it should be provided. The reason is the doctor usually say no their posting in rural areas. Why? Because of the unavailability of these facilities. If the doctors and the health centers, they are providing the facilities which we just mentioned above, they will be easily living in the villages rather than running to the urban areas to do their practice. And village panchayat should be given the power to write the annual report of the doctor, which should be read out in the Gram Sabha meeting. So when this village panchayat is having control, then only things are possible. So let us talk about this one. And one more thing is there. The village panchayat, why we said that village panchayat, let me give you the reason before we go ahead for the second part, this one. See, the village panchayat is able to check the presence of doctor every day in the health center. It can also assess all over treatment system available to the patients, that is the villagers. And district administration should also carry out surprise raids to check attendance of the doctors. The reason is it will make the doctors responsible for their duty. Also, they will work properly and stay in the hospitals due to probable actions taken by the district administrators for the doctors' absenteeism. The second one, as I was saying, that you can say that I shall go with the certain reforms regarding the political funding, and there should be state funding of election. Why? The reason is state funding will reduce the dependence of political parties as well as candidates on the donations provided by the businessmen to fulfill their demands. And there must be silence mode or very silent mode of canvassing without a wide use of banners and leaflets during the elections. Each candidate must be directed to make his or her identity by visiting door to door, village to village, and give his or her plan of action he or she wishes to be elected, what he wants to do for the people. And the reason is the silence mode of canvassing will automatically reduce the expense and open way to relate the candidates and the electorate directly. Any other problem of your choice? So the challenge which we can discuss here is, it has been observed that teachers in colleges run their private tuitions or coaching centers. As and when their class is over, they leave the college and invest their time in earning money. So if students had to take suggestions, concern teachers, they are not available. Not only this, instead of teaching them well in the class, they suggest students to join their coaching classes to make more money. So this has led to a tendency among the students to bunk their classes. So this has greatly affected the quality of education in our country. So the proposals which can be given for the reform is government should make it compulsory for the teachers to stay in the colleges till these are closed for the day. The university's officials should carry surprise raids, checks for the teachers' attendance, and if found absent during the class, they should be heavily penalized. And there should be provision of best teacher award or some reward. The students will select one teacher from each subject every year from their colleges. But teachers who get 3 such awards should be given special incentive. Like this, there can be certain permutation and combinations for this. Here is your space for writing your own definition of good democracy. You can write your name as XYZ, or whatever your name is, and definition of good democracy, not more than 50 words. So we are talking about this answer. And we'll talk about this also. So a good democracy is one which the rulers selected by the people take major decision under the framework of the constitution of fulfilling the wish of the people, hit of the people. But if they do not withstand their expectation, people can call them back. They can just, elect someone else. So the features are that democracy should reduce differences, giving full respect to everyone. People should have the right to call their representative back before time if they do not perform. That is, if 5 years are given, if the government is not performing, the leader is not performing, the time can be reduced. Once found guilty, people should be banned from contesting elections. And democracy should take care of these socio-economic matters equally and find out means to minimize economic inequality among the citizens. Democracy should provide sufficient representation of the minority and the disadvantaged or marginalized class. In a good democracy, the elected leaders should follow certain moral principles which form an ideal for the rest of the society. What do you mean by challenges? Chunauti. So a challenge is a difficulty that it carries within it. A challenge is not just any problem. We usually call only those difficulties, a challenge which are significant and which can be overcome. For example, if you want to climb a cliff, now this is a difficulty or a challenge for you, but once you reach the peak, you have another way to go or progress. So once we overcome a challenge, we can go up to a higher level than before. What are the major categories of challenges that a democracy faces? So we have three of them as a major challenge. Foundational challenge, that is making the democracy, finding and if any other regime is there, anarchy, monarchy, or say the army rule, we have to change it. So it's a foundational change. Second is the challenge of expansion. Now expansion means it is the democratic values or things have to be spread everywhere, like the institutions, etc. Then challenges of deepening of democracy. Now it has to go to the people, and the institutionalization of democracy should be done. Mention the foundational challenges that democracies are facing today. So what the democracies are facing today, first is the bringing down the existing non-democratic regimes, keeping military away from controlling the government, and establishing a sovereign and functional state. Discuss the challenge of expansion faced by democracies all over the world. So what are the challenges being seen? Applying the basic principle of democratic government across all the religions, all the social divisions, all the different social groups, ethnic groups, linguistic groups, and various institutions, whether government or non-government. And ensuring greater power to local government, that is the federal structure, extension of federal principles to all the units of federation, and inclusion of women, minority, and the marginalized class. So the central government, state government, local government, they have to be strengthened, and women and minority groups have to be included in every decision, every niti, every policy. What are the challenges of deepening of democracy? Why does this challenge take different meanings and path in different parts of the world? So the challenge of deepening of democracy is first the strengthening of the institution and practices of democracy. Now this should happen in such a way that people can realize their expectation of democracy. They can think or they can understand what they are expecting from democracy, they must get it. So strengthening those institutions that help people participation and control. So this requires an attempt to bring down the control and influence of rich and powerful people. Those who are having money, they can influence the government decisions. So this rich and powerful people on decision making. Then ordinary people have different expectation from democracy in different societies. Every society is not the same. Therefore, this challenge takes different meanings and path in different parts of the world. So these were the